Melody of Memory is the newest installment in the Kingdom Hearts franchise, released on all current-gen systems, and is set after the clusterfuck of an ending that was Kingdom Hearts 3 and Remind. I mean that in a good way. Kind of. Originally, KH3 and its DLC was the end of the so-called Darkseeker saga and was the beginning of whatever's next. But of course, like usual, Nomura has to release a unique continuation in order to easily weave the bigger titles together. And this time, it's a rhythm game. The only other rhythm game I've played in recent memory was Persona 5 Dancing, and if you saw that video, then you know how disappointed I was with that. Rhythm games just aren't really my thing, but honestly, a Kingdom Hearts rhythm game doesn't sound too off base for me. I'm actually kind of surprised it's taken them so long to execute this idea. With the sheer amount of amazing music that Kingdom Hearts has, it's arguably just as deserving of a rhythm game as the Persona or Final Fantasy franchise. And this is mostly thanks to Yoko Shimomura, who is an absolute legend and deserves so much recognition. As far as I know, she's worked on all the scores for the Kingdom Hearts installments, even the shitty ones, and she even scored Final Fantasy 15, which is unsurprisingly fucking amazing. But spanning from KH1 all the way up to 3, the music has just been consistently great and light. You know, despite the varying degrees of tone in the series. And despite the fact that she didn't make every single track, undeniably, the entire franchise, at least music-wise, is very consistently amazing and definitely has to do with Shimomura's influence. So as a rhythm game, it's already got a head start with a foundation of great music. And thankfully, the second most important aspect builds upon this. Speaking of which, this gameplay is pretty easy to get a grasp of. You only really end up hitting 4 buttons rather than the entire controller, which I'm totally fine with. It makes hitting combos way easier than if I was required to hit specific buttons. Melody is overall far more concerned with interesting combinations and hitting the notes on beat, rather than seeing how much the player can press within a minute. I'm glad that I didn't touch Proud with a 10-foot pole. Now, despite that, the game does steadily get more and more ridiculous with some of the later levels. Specifically, the Dream Drop distance levels in the final boss fight were a bit of a challenge for me. Honestly, all of the boss fights were kinda on the difficult side while still being thoroughly enjoyable. But like most rhythm games, once you get into the groove of the music, the rest just comes naturally. You'll start to hit more and more notes perfectly and even get a full chain. Getting a full chain, which requires you to miss absolutely nothing, is the best feeling in a rhythm game. But almost getting one and then fucking it up at the last possible second is the most infuriating thing of all time. However, it's not defeating like you think it'd be. When I fail, because most of the songs are so damn good and so short, because the game is so fun, and because I want to see that damn ending so bad, I naturally still wanted to keep playing. Honestly, it's been the most relaxing fun I've had in a little bit. I wanted to come back night after night on my own volition to play the new songs, to the point where I'm now replaying this on my Switch Lite to achieve that 100% baby. In my own experience, some of the timing was a little bit off, resulting in some lost chains, which is kinda eh. Initially, I thought it was just me or even my GameCube controller, but there are some people who have had the same issue. If this is the case, then I do hope that there is a patch to fix that, because that is a little bit annoying. In terms of story, it's very light for the first 6 to 7 hours, aka most of the fucking game. It's just Kairi recounting the entire series from her perspective as you play through the songs from the past titles. Now, to some, arguably the majority of the population, this may feel like it's cheap and lazy, but it's honestly more than that. Playing this game doesn't feel like it's just a recap, but it's also a send-off. Kingdom Hearts 3 was very much the tying up of loose ends that have been there since the beginning. If that game is the final chapter, then Melody is the epilogue to the Darkseeker saga. The entire 30-ish minute ending sets up such a different tone and even outlook on the franchise, opening the doors wide open to whatever weird shit Nomura's got coming up. I don't want to spoil anything at all, but the ending is I see it being far less divisive than KH3 or Remind. It's way more clear what's going to happen in the next game, at least in the beginning. It's still a mystery, but it's far easier to figure out and speculate what comes after, thanks to all the lore we have now. Thanks, I hate it. It's pretty clear that Kingdom Hearts is going to become way more meta in the coming games. I'm not going to get into any specifics for obvious reasons, but let's just say that sometimes it's a little bit on the nose. But anyways, as a whole, it's an overall satisfying ending, for the most part at least. I know damn well that all of us thought that this game would be Kairi's big moment, the time where she finally is the main character when she begins to have some agency. I've never hated the character of Kairi like most fans do, but I've always been expecting more out of her. Since all the way back in KH2, it's been implied that she's gonna do something cool, but as we all know, that led to her being a Keyblade wielder and dying in her first fucking fight. Twice. She died 2 times. I forgot about that whole timeline thing. Thanks, I hate it. And again, with Melody of Memory, it's been implied that she's gonna do something cool, guys, something big. She's the main character in all the trailers, she's the focal point of the cover. We're gonna see young Kairi do something cool, guys! I'm mentioning all this to explain that while it's not as bad as KH3, this is still not Kairi's moment to shine. Not yet. Her moment to shine was stolen from her, quite literally. It's obvious that the ending is clearly setting her character up for the next phase. I just want Kairi to be cool, man. Just let her be cool. Hashtag make Kairi cool. Also, will you just let these two be finally happy together, you fucking sadist? Overall, if you really don't want to play this, you could just watch the entire 20 to 30 minute ending on YouTube. I feel like this is the one last thing we have to talk about before I'm done here. If Kingdom Hearts isn't one of your favorite franchises, if you don't love the past games or the music, then you'll probably not like this game whatsoever. Kingdom Hearts, it has a reputation for being disliked vehemently. Is that how you say that word?
Vehemently.
Alright, I feel good about that. From its story to its gameplay and some specific installments to tons of other stuff, but it's mostly the story. And while I respect other people's opinions and I understand that some people just don't see what I see sometimes, there are some arguments hurled towards these games that are a little bit ridiculous, especially when it comes to the general consensus about Melody of Memory. According to some, they believe that Melody of Memory is basically a phone game, it looks cheap, it's too simple, and just overall just doesn't seem like it's worth the asking price of $50 to $60. I want to make it clear that you are the only judge of what you want to spend your money on. This is why at the end of most videos I recommend what I would or wouldn't spend on a game. So while I'm not going to try and change anybody's minds on this whatsoever, it's better if we put this all into perspective. If you don't like Kingdom Hearts, the music, the story, or even the look of the past games, then yeah, obviously you're not going to fucking like it. But if you like all that stuff, then Melody of Memory is for you. The game is quite literally made for you. But instead of saying that this game just doesn't appeal to them personally, some of these people are phrasing their arguments as if this rhythm game is just objectively not worth the money. Now, would I have appreciated a smaller 0.2 type game where it's Kairi actually experiencing past moments in the series sold for $40-ish? Yes! Yes, I would have. I would have loved that shit. But this is cute too. It's an enjoyable, relaxing little nostalgic trip through the franchise with a ton of content and replayability. It also functions as the closing of the book of the past 2 decades of this franchise while simultaneously leading us into what follows. If none of that appeals to you, if you haven't played every single Kingdom Hearts game, or you aren't gripped by the story or characters or even its music, then don't get Melody. You probably didn't want it anyway. And yes, obviously for $60, Melody of Memory is objectively less graphically intensive than Kingdom Hearts 3. But again, it's all about perspective. Kingdom Hearts 3 took about 5 years of development, and while Melody's development time hasn't been confirmed yet, we're all pretty damn sure it didn't take that long. Plus, literally every other Kingdom Hearts game looks just like this. A game that is, again, the end of the past 20 years of Kingdom Hearts, so making it look like those games isn't all that ridiculous. This wasn't like a plot to steal everybody's money from their pockets. That's what the mobile games are for. Yep. I'll be here all night, folks. I will complain about stuff that bothers me no matter how much I like it. Remind was a little too much fucking money. $30 for what was essentially a new ending after the $60 that I spent on buying it in the first place? That's a little bit preposterous if I say so myself. And that is something that I can understand people being upset about. But to me, Melody of Memory is alright, man. So with that out of the way, like I said, if Kingdom Hearts is a big thing to you, if you like rhythm games, and you're willing to unlock all 150 songs, then this game, at least to me, is definitely worth the asking price. Melody is also playable on the new PlayStation 5 if you buy the last gen PS4 release. I believe it's the same for the Series X, but I'm not too sure. So yeah, that's all I have to say about Kingdom Hearts Melody of Memory. Overall, a pretty good game, one that I can't stop playing. And that's all I got for you guys tonight. Like, subscribe, and all that jazz. I'll catch you guys next time. Later, kids. Have a good night.